box.
I heard the ding.
Does it need a new battery? I just said it not that long ago again. All right, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chance of the minutes and agenda? Yeah. Motion to approve those.
I'll second the motion.
Motion was Ginger and second for Derby to approve minutes and agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
9 a.m. Mark Rogness to discuss public health.
Hi, my name is Mark Rogness, and kind of maybe a harsh one coming down from the north. 4C high school grad, Luther College grad, chemistry, worked at the hygienic lab in Des Moines for 5 years. The last 5 months of it, I moved into a homeless shelter back in the 80s, and I ran their books and did stuff. I worked with the homeless for 6 years in Des Moines and Moorhead. City council members would take me out for lunch, breakfast. I was in court a lot for civil law, for building and zoning and stuff, and I always walked out feeling respected by the judges, and I hope that it's the same here. Can't do that forever. Went over to a place called Bethpage, really stellar agency that works with the mentally challenged. I worked there part-time when I was doing the homeless shelters. Went back to Christian Intentional Community with L'Arche. It's 150 communities in 35 countries. You live in and work a lot with the mentally challenged. I was in Mobile. There was no L'Arche USA back then. I went to a different franchise up in Winnipeg and been there most of the time. Went back to Mobile for an emergency back in the 2006, 2007. Went down to Clinton, Iowa, L'Arche for a year, minor crisis. And presently I'm on compassionate leave from an agency in Canada in Winnipeg to take care of my parents. And so I've been kind of dedicating my life to vulnerable people. And I just read that the funding was cut in March, and then but nobody knew about it. Is that correct? Kind of, yeah.
Okay, I'll explain it. This is my recollection of our budget meeting last January. The public health hadn't been using the $235,000 that we've been allocating for them, so we cut it back to 50, with the promise that we would make sure they are solvent, and that we would, if we had to do a budget amendment, and this is my recollection. Correct me if I'm wrong, you two. That we would make sure that the public health was funded. So that is where I stand. Me personally. These two have to.
It did not get communicated to the people of public health that it was being cut. That is the only part that wasn't. We should have made sure that they did.
Okay.
So we dropped the ball on that part of it, I guess, as far as making sure everybody knew what we were doing. But there was no intent to cut it to where people lost services.
Right.
Okay.
Over the years, that we've allocated money towards them. I don't know, we went through this last time. A couple of different years they did utilize the monies. Other years they didn't utilize the money. So it's kind of a hit and miss on whether that money is needed. So that's why we did make the cut with that intention that we would try and make it right if it was needed.
So they were kind of doing a stellar job of getting their funding from different sources and branches. And
public health has changed so much, and I've got an expert sitting back there that can explain a lot better than me. You want to do that? Would you just how we're getting reimbursed and how?
We picked a bad year to do it because
Everything came to a head.
They're having trouble getting their funding from the MCOs and other sources, which I think is intentional, but go ahead.
Yep, that's exactly what he says. When they switched from being Title 19 to the MCOs, you have to pre-authorize before now, and you didn't have to, and the paperwork, and then now the MCOs, if you have a year to get your pre-authorization and your billing done. If you don't, then you don't have to, they don't have to pay you. We are getting paid now, but it's still not in a timely manner, and we're not getting reimbursed at the correct rate.
Which
They
is
are
really cut into our funding.
Yeah, but cut into our funding,
Yeah.
and it's just a trickle down effect.
And when you say not getting the paperwork done within a year, it's not so much getting it done, it's getting it done to their satisfaction.
Exactly, getting done to their satisfaction. 1 month you can bill it and you get paid for that because it's correct. The next month you do the exact same thing you did the month before, and they deny it.
Yeah, because I'm started with waiver with Mosaic, so which is what Bethany became. So.
Yep.
So I just want to say that I'm watching my mom fall and I can't do anything, and she goes in and then she goes into the nursing home, and I had a sheet of paper that I wanted to go over with the public health nurse, and she was there the first day. And she covered all three things, and she covered it admirably. It's one of the most stellar organizations, I think, in the whole county, and the aides are, I've dealt with aides from Mobile to Winnipeg, and they're as competent or more as any I've seen. And I just kind of look at it as an agency that's predominantly female, because that's the nature of the way things work sometimes in the service, in providing care for people, and to have their funding at risk. I just want to say that really you need to look after them, and I've said enough.
Well, I appreciate your comments on this, and we totally agree with the ability of our public health department to do their job and be compassionate and fully go through their process. But because of these constraints that we're under with the MCOs and everything, it makes it challenging for them, because for every 15-minute visit, they spend 45 minutes doing paperwork.
And it's not just the MCOs now, it's coming down with Medicare too. Medicare's changing things, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, and they kind of do hold the purse strings for everyone.
Now, explain this thing that Medicare or Medicaid is demanding. You have to have one designated physician.
Yep, you have to have. We're in a study, if I say this right, for 3 years, and they picked so many states to do it, and Iowa happened to be one of the states. And Ruth can explain it better, and she's not here today. But they give you guidelines you have to follow, and it's kind of like a report card. And the higher you get in your report card, the more money you get. And we're being compared to bigger counties and agencies, like used to have so many patients at a certain number. So we're kind of lumped into the bigger end.
This report card, this has to do with outcome, and are they
outcome? Yep.
And that's not fair, because you're dealing with 90-some-year-old people.
Exactly.
Are they ever going to get better?
Right.
We hope so.
And they're comparing rural, which we are, to the city, which you're not comparing apples to apples. But it's the mandate from Medicare, and if we want to keep our reimbursement rate high, we have to do the best we can.
Yes.
Can somebody explain what are MCOs?
Managed care organizations that the state hired to run the DHS. Instead of us doing it ourselves, they've hired for-profit, out-of-state companies that have all been convicted of Medicaid fraud in other states to come in and manage our
State, federal, or state
Yeah.
Title 19 program.
Oh,
So we don't have a lot of great things to say about the MCO.
even if our system was poorly run, at least all the money stayed in the state. Now all the profits that them guys are purposely trying to, and what they're doing is they get paid X amount of dollars to do the services, and then the less money they put into it, the more money they get to keep. So if you were to really make paperwork intrusive and stuff, and get people to give up, they profit from that. It doesn't seem to be very
Bad deal.
Yeah.
how long has this been going on? Several years?
No,
No,
just
no,
started
just
Year
April,
and a half?
no,
Yeah,
April will be a year.
Oh,
April will be a year?
Yep.
God, is it just that? It seems longer than that.
So a lot of the costs are coming down and putting back on the county rather than funding through Medicaid, Medicare, and other areas.
and this was a federal mandate, right?
State. The former administrator.
Our former governor, Sally Branston, it just boggles my mind.
I can't understand it. He did it and then he ran away to China.
I don't know if you'll find one county in the state that is happy with the system.
And I don't care which side of the political fence you're on, I haven't found anybody that's happy with the system.
Another unfunded mandate.
Yes.
So this position we talked about that has to go through this.
The clinical, that one,
Yeah. What
that,
qualifications does this person have to have? Can it be somebody within our organization?
it can, but that person cannot see patients. It has to be a nurse, but they cannot see patients.
Okay. Administrative nurse.
And it can't be the administrator either.
It's, sounds like just another way to add cost to it to make your report card look worse. Especially in a smaller county where that person doesn't see as many people, so
Right.
therefore
Are you, is Ruth looking at sharing with another county somehow?
I can't answer that. I don't think so, but I can't answer that. I don't. I think we're just kind of waiting to see what happens here.
I can add something to that. I bet was about 10 years ago. Winnebago and Hancock were in serious talks about sharing. And they were this close.
Yep. But that's about that time the hospital took it over, right?
Correct.
Hospital
Because that's
took
when I
over
started,
Hancock.
yeah.
Oh, well then maybe it's been more than 10 years ago.
Because that's
Might
when
be
I started.
12?
12, yeah, because
12?
that's when I started, yep.
12 to 15 maybe?
Hancock's the hospital took it over not that many years ago.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, somewhere there.
Oh, it's been.
But Dr. Keller was on the board at that time too.
She still is.
She still is.
Right, but I mean, she would have recollection of those talks of sharing.
I guess in answer to your concern, from my perspective, I don't think the citizens of Winnebago County have to worry about us funding public health. So,
Anything else on public health? Okay.
Thanks again, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Consider for approval, cost advisory services report.
I haven't had a chance to go over it, but I'll make a motion to approve it, and we can always come back to it later if there's something that comes up that might. So I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Stetter, and second from Derby, to approve the cost of advisory services report. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Terry, there's a sheet under there that Bill needs to sign. And this one too, please.
Make me print my name too, huh? Can't read my writing. Okay, Scott Minders, she's right here.
Hello.
Hi, Scott, we're ready for you.
Okay, I'll edit.
Morning, Scott.
Morning.
All right.
Big roll. So I got a few things on the agenda, but other than that, our guys are out doing last round of mowing and mowing snow traps, and I got snow equipment mounted last week, and be prepared for whatever the weather throws at us. That's about all.
I have nothing.
I was gonna ask you, have you looked into the rail car tanks and that for culverts?
We have, we put one in
Discussed
last
that
year.
one. Yeah, you discussed that before. Huh?
Yep, there's a rep that comes to our conferences every year, and
Okay.
I talk to him, and
They're applicable in some areas, but not others.
yeah, there's a certain point where the cost becomes prohibitive. For instance, if you have a 90-inch culvert, they're much cheaper, but when you get into the 108s, 120, then the tank cars can be cost effective. They only come in certain lengths, so if you have to get a longer one, you have to weld them together in the field, and that's really not the easiest thing to do. That's what we did in that case.
Perfect would be.
They have to fit together perfect, and they're not perfect tubes. They have a belly in them because they're...
Yeah, they get a little slope to the metal.
Yep, so there's some challenges with them, but we did put one in last year, and some other counties do it too.
Sounds like Franklin does quite a few.
Could be. I haven't heard Jay talk about it, but I know that they do some in Worth County. Like if you go out on Highway 9 toward Worth County, just past the border and the gravel road headed north, there's a triple, and I think that is a tank car bridge. Worth County has a tendency to put in more narrow bridges than we do, so 40-footer can work better for them.
Okay.
So, yep, I keep an eye on that.
All right. Anything else for secondary roads? Okay, we'll move on to set bid date for Sunnyside Farm lease, Forest Township, Section 30, Winnebago County.
So the notice that I'm prepared to send out will say something to the effect that bids will be taken on a lease of that farm, about 44.5 acres. The lease would be a 3-year term to start and then renewable from there. Of course, the rent would be paid March 1st of each year. Sealed bids would be opened on November 28th, and at that time, the bidders could be here to increase their bid by $200, minimum $200 each increment, so that the person willing to pay the highest price is the one that gets the bid for the lease. The lease we plan to use is the standard lease that is released by the Extension Office. So we would receive bids by 9 a.m. that day and open them at 9:30.
Will we give them the option, and I'm not totally familiar with the farm program on this, is it possible to get it put into like CRP and make it worthwhile to the farmer and to us?
Yeah, so we talked about CRP with the FSA office, and well, first of all, their optimism for the program isn't very high because of the way things are working in legislature, but if the farmer wants to apply for CRP, they're free to do so.
So then,
we did look into applying for it ourselves, and as a government entity, we are not eligible.
So then we'd have to go more than a 3-year lease, then, wouldn't we, to that farmer?
Well, if it was going to go into CRP, then you know you could sign a longer lease with him, I guess.
Right.
So the renewable part could be for 7 years then?
Or whatever the CRP contract is for.
10 to 15.
Yeah, the way that,
Because the CRP has gone down considerably. I mean, you could get over $300 an acre for a while, I think, but now it's a lot less than that.
yeah, as I understand it, they don't anticipate any land going into the program anytime soon.
Okay.
So I don't foresee that being a discussion point,
Okay.
but if it does, we can sure address it at that time.
That's fine.
And I guess along the way here, I'm sure there'll be some questions, and we might have to make some decisions about what's allowed in the lease, such as things like hunting or fishing or other types of activities out there for the tenant.
Well, I guess I would be amenable to just letting you take care of this contract. And I don't know if that needs to be an emotion.
I guess I'd rather have some input on it, be part of the process myself.
Well, Scott can't act in the best interest of Winnebago County, would he?
At the very least today, select the bid date and time as I have described, and then I'd like to open the bids in a public meeting.
I'll make that a motion to set the bid date for November 28th with everything to be in at 9 a.m. and bid opening at 9:30.
Second.
Motion from Derby, second from Stensrud, to approve the bid date for Sunnyside Farm Lease, Forest Township, Section 30, for November 28th at 9 a.m. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carla, do you have all of that? Okay.
All right, consider for approval utility accommodation permit for Osmus Farm Supply Company.
Apparently, Osmus Farm Supply is interested in getting a line from one of their sites on the east side of the road to one of their sites on the west side of the road up there by Rake where they have their commercial facility. I've been talking with them and their contractor about what that entails, and they'll be going pretty deeply under the road, and they'll mark it on the right-of-ways, so I don't have any major concerns with it.
They're boring under the road, are they?
They'll be boring under the road, so.
So it'd be liquid in a pipe.
It is a gas line according to the permit, so I anticipate it's LP or natural gas, or I'm not sure what they got for fuel up there.
I would guess they have some large bulk LP tanks. I bet it's an LP line going from their bin site to that location.
Certainly could be. It will in no way impact any of the foreseeable projects for us or other utilities, so.
All right.
I recommend approving the
I'll make a
permit.
motion to approve the utility accommodation permit for Osmus Farm Supply. Second Stetser, to approve the utility accommodation permit for Osmus Farm Supply. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Signature from you there, and then Carla.
Consider for approval MOU between Winnebago County and DD1 for bridge replacement.
So I've made an effort to complete our right-of-way acquisition for this project by the end of October. But so this is a similar agreement that we had between the, I think it's DD 25 down by Merle Robinson. That bridge, we had an agreement between the drainage district and the supervisors. In that case, it was trustees who were not, a separate board. In this case, it's you guys acting as the trustees and you guys acting as the board of supervisors. But this makes it clear that you as the trustees are willing to let this box culvert impede on drainage district easements. I didn't make that clear, so here's the location of the bridge. And here's a my Grace Brand shed there. And this is the plan sheet from the job. And as you can see, we'll be using some temporary easement area, but of course some of that is already drainage district easement. So rather than getting easements from the landowner, we are essentially getting co-easement with the drainage district.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the county and DD1 for bridge replacement.
Second. Motion Derby, second Stetser, to approve the MOU between Winnebago County and DD1 for bridge replacement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Kind of awkward there, but Bill, I'll take two signatures from you on there.
Yeah, I just like to see that you can be the chairman of two boards here.
Kind of two-faced today.
Yeah, it's not just today.
What else? Carla.
Get this back down. Auditor's office will discuss drainage matters.
We can talk about that later if you want.
Yeah, it's almost 9:30.
Oh, all right.
That's slow.
That is so, that's right. Okay, 9:30 a.m. discussion regarding agreed upon procedures and audit.
I brought this forward. I have questions. I have been in contact with the state auditor's office. I'm still a little confused from the answers that they gave me. So maybe you can set my mind clear. When we set a budget, we have to fall within that budget, correct? We cannot spend more than our budget, our approved budget.
Correct. Granted,
So
you
why
have
do you-
collected.
I'm sorry.
Granted, you have collected the dollars that are anticipated to be collected. It's like your budget at home. If you budget to spend $5,000 a month on a car payment, you can budget it all you want, but if you don't actually have that money, you can't make that expenditure.
But when we discussed our budget back in January and approved it in March, we had the money that we approved our budget for. So I'd like to know why we're in the financial mess we're in.
Can I ask who you visited with at the state auditor's office?
Brian, I can't remember his last name, but Brian, and I just got a call late Friday, and I haven't been able to talk to her. I tried yesterday, there's a gal calling back too.
Jennifer Campbell is the one you were
Okay,
in contact with.
Jennifer,
Yes.
okay, yeah. She's the, yeah, that was the one who left the message on her. And so, can you answer me? I mean, I'll say right now, I'm not the brightest bulb in this room.
Well, and,
So.
My response would be, the audit has not been completed, and I guess I'm asking specifically what you're looking for, because the purpose of an audit.
I'll answer that. Why are we in the financial mess we're in?
As supervisors, are you reviewing all the claims and all the budget documents and the budget to actual comparisons monthly?
I don't think there's a supervisor in this world that can, that has the expertise to forensically look at a budget and say.
That was not my question. As far as the disbursements
Yes, we do.
go.
Yes, we do.
You actually look at the claims.
Yes, we do. Yes.
And the list of claims, so you actually physically look at all the claims that go
No,
through
you're
the
right.
list.
We don't do that. And you advised us to do that a year ago, and shame on me. You're right. Shame on me for not doing that. Shame on me for not going through Scott's claims every month, every office in this county. Shame on me. I admit it.
And with the appropriations, in visiting with Carla and with Bill and with Terry last week, with the budget amendments,
You visited with them last week?
I was here last week.
She was working here and I stopped in.
Yeah.
Me too.
And
I
so,
texted you to let you know that she was here.
I didn't get it.
and we were here to look at the accrual entries. Carla's working on preparing her gap report for the Department of Management, and so we were here 2 days last week to do some test work on that to ensure that that report is proper and correct for Carla before she goes ahead and submits it. So, and in visiting with that, you look at the amount of budget amendments that have been approved in the last few years. The revenues are not increasing to cover the expenditures that are going up. That would be one place to look.
Okay.
Another option, there's been a lot of money spent on courthouse renovations in the past few years.
And I'd like to address that specifically right now. When Bill wasn't in on this when we started this process, it was Terry and I and Willie. And when we initially started this process, we were given a figure of $400,000.
For the entire.
For the entire, minus the roof. We knew that the roof was going to need repair, but at $400,000.
We did not get a solid number because of the nature of the work.
Unreal.
It's just,
You can spin this the way you want it, but this is just unreal, Terry. It really is.
All right, Mike.
Go ahead.
I guess when you work on a structure like this and you're taking out blocks and you find out there's more damage behind it, how are you supposed to know that ahead of time to budget for that?
you can't see it until
Going
you
into
see it.
this, and the architect, warned us, you weren't gonna be an exact number when we did the bidding process.
We never even explored options of, is this building worth keeping a repair up?
I believe we had discussions on it.
Well, unfortunately, the decision not to repair this building or whatever should have been before we made the addition. That was the time to, if you're gonna build a new courthouse.
Well, be that as it may.
There's nothing we can do about it now because they added on that big addition and then, so now you either gotta demolish this and add something else onto it or work on it, I guess. It's,
I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to go back in minutes and see where I approved the extra expenditures over $400,000. I'm just going to have to spend the time to do it because I
don't think you approved anything over 400,000. It's just all the rest of it came later.
But it still has to be approved by us, Bill. Pay that bill.
We've approved in the budget increases to the construction program along the last couple of years, if I remember right.
Yeah, and this is an argument whether we should do this or not. This is just why we're in the financial mess we're in right now. So it's not a.
Between this and the public safety center being bigger than we anticipated, I would think those are.
Why is that? Why is the public safety center bigger than it should be? Was there a mendacious cabal there? I don't know.
Well,
This has gotten out of control.
It requires way more employees than we ever thought it was gonna.
Why?
Nobody.
Why wasn't that said when we were doing the referendum?
There's a $64,000 question.
I think there was a bunch of people on this, and I'm ticked. I am mad. I'm ticked that there's a bunch of mendacious people on that board, on that committee, that lied to make this referendum pass. So, there you go.
Well, once again, you're making claims that, in my opinion, I went out there and I put forth to the public information I was given.
You did not research it. You couldn't have. Because I sat there and we had an average daily population of 3.5. And you guys claimed, and here's another thing, John, we hire a guy, a consultant that's gonna do the project, and you got mad at me for abstaining and not saying that we should do this. You got mad at me for that. And I tell you what, it's... All right, I'm done.
Well, I like to believe that nobody had bad intent on this. They all had their numbers. They were, unfortunately, believable. And then all of a sudden, once the thing is built, the jail inspector waves his hand, and all of a sudden we need all these extra employees. It would have been really nice if we could have known that was going to happen ahead of time.
Well, back to the audit and procedures discussion. So we, in effect, we kind of know where we're at and why we're there. I've got a list of all the amendments over the last 5 years that I requested from Carla, and you know, some of these were they had revenue behind them. They were pass-through funds, but sometimes it required revenues on our part to make them happen. Yeah, that one year in 2016, we did have a $312,000 budget, and we went over it $202,000 because of some of the major repairs we had to do. There was two budgets that year, or two amendments that year for courthouse and grounds. I don't know if they're both for the building. One was $94,000 addition, almost 95. No, it was a reduction.
Doesn't matter, we're in a mess. How do we get out of it? In your opinion?
Well, there's several ways. With the courthouse renovation project, that had all been funded out of the general fund.
Yep.
All of that did. That really, as large of a project as what that was, could have been something that the county would have issued debt for. And then you would have been able to pay that through a capital projects fund. You would have been able to go ahead and levy a debt service levy, general obligation, to go ahead and to pay for those repairs. I understand that project is still ongoing, so that may be an option. Other options include moving as much as you can for expenditures. The code allows certain things to be paid out of general supplemental, so you have the option to move as much as possible. And I think when Carla and I visited, you're almost there. There's a few things that can probably get moved yet, so that would be something to look into. Also, the use of the Rural Services Supplemental Fund is another option. If you have deputies that are on patrol, those wages and the vehicle fees and the related expenses can be moved to rural basic. There's options. Everybody kind of needs to tighten their belts with their budgets as much as possible. The other concern is with your debt limit. you're refunded right now. And that crossover refunding still counts against your debt limit. And that does not get defeased until, or paid, I think the crossover date is June 1st of 2018. So, you have to watch that debt limit also when you're considering possibly issuing debt to go ahead and move forward. So there's options out there. It's just going to take a little bit of, and the code pretty much dictates what you can and can't spend out of those respective funds. So, as long as you're within the guidelines established by the code, you do have some room to move expenditures into different line item areas.
And those two huge financial burdens, the Public Safety Center and this, are something that no other supervisors have had to deal with. And it's all coming at once. We're getting a double whammy right here. This building is older than it's ever been. It's had more weathering and freezing and thawing and evidently, it's going to get worse too, because that balcony in theory is, it's you can blame it on us if you want.
No, you got thrown into the middle of this.
Well, no, I've been on enough of this that I'm not going to. But really, what are our choices?
We need
With the Public Safety Center, I wish we had some choices over again, maybe. But at this point, it doesn't matter. With this building, it's either let it fall down or fix it.
And that discussion needs to be had.
And grant funding might be an option too. This building is on the National Registry, so.
I've already started the process. We've got one deadline we are hoping to make today. It's one thing I've tried to do over the time I've been here is look for grants.
But it's still tax dollars. I don't care if it comes from the federal.
These are foundation dollars.
Okay.
Well, and a lot of those dollars are available regardless of who applies. So Winnebago County might as well take advantage because someone else will.
That's the problem that our country is in. Because let somebody else pay for it. But you know what? We're paying for a project in California.
Exactly.
Okay? So let's grow up.
We just have to get everybody else to grow up with us. First ones are the ones that are going to pay the bill. I don't disagree with you, but
I've said my piece, and I am mad.
Everybody should take care of themselves. That's the way it is. Whether it's county social services or whether it's our county nurses, we'd be able. If you don't like what one county does, move to the other one. Or if you don't like what one state does, move to the other one. But unfortunately, we send our money to other people who send some of it back with all kinds of strings attached, and
that's the truth.
Anyway.
All right, we'll just have to work on it.
I'm
done with my discussion on this one.
I think if we spend money, which it sounds like these audits are really expensive, if we spend some money on an audit, we're just going to be spending more money
I agree
that we don't have to find out what we already know.
I agree with you, Bill.
And we're going to have to do some severe belt tightening.
Yep.
I think we'll have, I would hope to have several budget discussions on our current budget in the future.
I'm sorry for my tirade. I am. But I think it needed to be said. It didn't probably need to be said in the way I did it, so I apologize for that. But it needed to be said.
Okay, any further discussion regarding audit procedures or anything to do with an audit? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if I can help, interpreting the code and as far as what you need to do to budget, please reach out. I'm more than happy to try to help you work through it. So
appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, 10 o'clock a.m. Public hearing for DD 103. Oh, no, excuse me. We're not at 10. Now we can go back to drainage.
I don't really have anything.
I don't.
Yeah. Everything's going okay. secondary roads, thank you for taking out a beaver dam last week.
Hmm.
That was good.
I won't take credit for that,
Where'd
but
you do
I
that?
understand they did that. No, this is south of Thompson. Well, remember the ditch that we cleaned by Al Divins?
Okay.
Half a mile to the east.
All right,
There's another one on R-74.
there's another
And
good sized one.
When
that
I
you
talked
can-
to Mark, they were already in the area, so
Oh, okay.
he said, do you want us to
Well, I call
do
it
it?
Gary, but it's
Yeah.
gonna be $1,000 bill.
Yeah, and this was, I think, $250, so it was very nice of them, I want to thank you.
There is another, I know where there's two more beaver dams. One of them, you can dang near leave tobacco on the truck and reach it.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get the sheriff to get dynamite.
Well, no, I was wishing I had a stick of dynamite, I'd have went in and got rid of it all by myself and had some fun doing it.
Dave, do you know, because I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, I was just being funny.
No, I could have some tannerite. Can I use that to blow a beaver dam?
We'd have to check with the fire marshal's office.
Okay.
Don't call the DNR.
Because
Yeah, really.
this is gonna be $1,000 bill to get this beaver dam. I could do it for $50
And have fun.
and have fun doing it.
Watch a bunch of flying beavers. We used to give out dynamite permits and things like that, but we haven't done that for years, it's all gone to the fire marshal's office.
So I need to call the fire marshal? Maybe Gary's might have already done it. Check.
Mike said, I'm not quoting
you on
this. What's that?
I am not quoting you on this.
You can call me, you know me, you can call me anytime you want.
You'll be getting calls from the DNR minutes.
I don't think he's the only one in the world that likes fire attendants.
We can call Tim down the street. He's got tons of it.
Winnebago County is signed back on with Thompson. Okay, every county.
Just north of, just north of Howard Julius's, you guys are ever out that way, that direction with a backhoe? Just on the east side of the road, the dredge ditch runs in the road ditch there. And as you cross the bridge, it's just maybe 30 or 40 yards north of the bridge. There's a great big beaver dam.
Right in the road ditch. Drainage ditch
I've
comes
already got
over.
someone to go out there and trap the beavers, so when
Well,
you
that's
blow
the
it
big
off, at
thing.
least the beavers won't go flying.
Right, that's the biggest thing.
It should be good.
This should be good.
Yeah, that's, I suppose for a drainage ditch, road ditch, beaver dam, would that be more of the drainage district responsibility or the road department?
It's in the, I would guess that this drainage ditch is in the right of way of the second.
Even if it is, I think it's still,
Is it still, well, I mean, if you have to, then build a drainage system.
yeah, let me make a note about it anyway.
The other one,
I think at one point I'm just gonna have dealt with everything before, but something new comes up all the time.
and that's only, it's a good beaver.
Somebody's gotta get it. Like that one we took out, it's just made of corn stalks, you know? But it was probably a foot and a half tall. It's amazing that they're able to do that.
Yeah, no, it's mostly corn stalks. There's a few, looks like they nibbled down some small suckers that were growing up.
You said the beavers have been trapped, you think?
Well, they're supposed to. I've already told someone to get out there and trap them. I talked to.
Because they'll build the dam in a day, you know?
Yeah, no, yeah, if you don't get the beavers, it'll be right back.
Have to keep that in mind when I'm around.
I'll make sure I contact him, make sure that it's. All right, consider for approval liquor license for Rice Lake Golf Club and Country Club.
I'll make that motion, but I just asked anybody here.
I'll second it. Sedgwick and a second from Jensvold to approve a liquor license for Rice Lake Golf and Country Club. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Stand up. Push this side.
So we just do it.
No, we have to look at it.
Yeah. Not sure what it is either.
Chris, do you know anything about this FSA contribution?
I'm sorry, I do not.
Okay, so that'd be Carl.
No problem.
That's what we do over form.
Thank you, Darren. Oh, excuse me.
So the 848.24 should be 80.
Okay.
That's what it is there. Yeah.
I go into drugstores, I get those people. I'm like, I'm kind of like,
This is going to be planned into the minutes, everybody will
What's the public hearing for?
DD 103.
What about it? To approve the,
Well, because we were going to maybe have it to do the bid letting and stuff today, but we have a remonstrance, so we're not. Because we reclassified it and then that changed everybody's estimates.
yeah?
So.
So a lot of interest here.
Yes.
So the project report has been approved already, or?
They approved it, now it was a public hearing for the, because we were waiting for the reclassification to get done, so I would know what's going to really.
I got
Let me look at my folder. Yes, you're good.
Hey Drew, do you have a project report you could email me?
Yeah,
Do you have my email address?
I think so. I've got it somewhere.
Okay.
Believe it or like that for you, don't really know what you're looking at. The whole project. But I'd like to see well, it should be less than that. Make a motion to approve payroll. And I will vote aye. Whether it needs a new battery or what. Whoop.
I'll second Mike's motion. Motion from Stensrud and a second from Derby to approve the payroll claims.
Wait for him to get back.
He said he was voting aye, so he left. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Well, he said it on camera, so we know he did it. I'm sorry, it takes much for me to get through there. Can you say your show?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for DD 103.
I'll second it. Motion from Derby, second from Jeswell. Open the public hearing for DD 103. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Maybe wait for Mike to get back.
Yeah, He probably wants to hear it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's in his district.
yeah. Is this one of those times when we need to theme the Jeopardy plan?
Well, I can tell you guys as landowners that we couldn't have the reclassification report today. The engineer couldn't make it today for that part of it, but we will be having that soon, so I'll be sending out letters. And that'll show you exactly the classification as they made it to why it was different today. They classified it all the laterals, so any future repairs will be strictly who's on those laterals. If it's the main ditch, everybody will pay. If it's a certain lateral, just those people will pay. As it stood right before now, everyone paid for every repair. So that's why it started out, the estimates were so different. And now it's equitably correct as it should have been in the first place.
So is that done with each new project that comes up?
We have been lately. A lot of the classifications are 40, 50, 60 years old. Sometimes they never have been reclassified since day one. When we do a project that's big, we want to make sure that the correct people are paying. So then I have asked for a couple of reclassifications, sometimes the board, sometimes the landowner. In code, if you do a project that is large, you're supposed to. We haven't done that in the past. There are drainage districts, when you look at the original classification, they look okay. And you can see what parcels are supposed to be where. When you look at over by Thompson and it says, the 600 feet of this and the chain of this. In today's world, I don't maybe know what all that means anymore. So it's nice to have it in today's version. It's by parcel, so you know exactly who's supposed to have what. So that's what we did with this one. It wasn't classified by laterals. We're working strictly with the main tile, this particular petition. So I felt it was a good thing to do.
And just to clarify, we are doing that. We are getting it up to code, what it's
Right.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
So,
I guess the only thing is, when we start digging into this, we were under the assumption that everybody was in it. And if we'd known that it was going down to what it is now, we probably never would have even started it. So we ended up with a big engineering bill that we probably wouldn't have had.
That makes sense, and I apologize for that.
But that's, we can't change that now, so now we just gotta figure out what we're gonna try and do or whatever, so.
And especially with an improvement, we needed to reclassify it, and I should have seen that at the first, and I did not.
this is a good example of where we need to start to lobby the legislature and get this drainage code changed. Nothing against you guys, but Gary or Harvey or Jerry Brugness have engineered this perfectly for $0. And we got to get down to state and get this drainage code changed. It's so outdated, it's on grid.
Well, that was kind of the original plan in the first place. We had some discussion about that.
Right.
But it didn't go that route, and then we went this route, assuming there would be no reclassification.
Yeah.
So that was a big hit.
Yes, it was, yeah, I agree.
Timing there was suspect,
Yeah. That was in the works before you started this, so, just so you know that. The reclassification.
I heard bits and pieces of it, yeah. But then, boom, right when we're ready we're gear up to do this, then we get this hit.
And that's when they could get it done. It wasn't that happened at the same time, but I wanted the classification to be right for this project.
And I don't agree with it. I think the whole district should be paying for this. It's no different than if you extended that ditch, open ditch, all the way, the whole district would be paying for it. So what's the difference?
And we're,
in my opinion.
And we're still paying for improvements downstream.
Exactly. You pay for the improvements downstream.
So I don't agree with it totally.
Yep. You are 100% correct on that.
Well, when it comes to the reclassification hearing, then you can voice those concerns. Today is just about the project as spoken. So.
Now, we gotta keep it to that. I'm sorry, but that's a law.
When is the reclassification hearing?
I don't know the date for sure.
Yeah, set.
No.
So what will that do then?
That, the engineer that did that, Beacher and Kim, at this point, they didn't do reclassification, so we had to hire a different one back a year ago. And he couldn't make it today, so that's why there will be a separate.
But I mean, what's that hearing gonna?
He's gonna show you the reclassification and why it's the way it is.
But it can't be changed.
Well, you can petition, or you can voice your concerns, and
Right.
it has to be heard.
Right. And they'll tell you how they came about with all of their numbers.
By state statute, I don't think it's my understanding as of right now that we can't change that.
There has been changes to classifications. There has to be a valid reason for change to a reclassification.
So when that hearing comes, then that's when you can talk about all that.
Our hands are tied.
Well, I thought that would just be today and we'd be done with it. That's not.
No, that's a separate hearing all on its own. Today is just the public hearing for the project. I'm
not saying this because I'm probably not even gonna run again. You guys got screwed. You did. By state law.
All was not fair in love, war, and drainage. Didn't take me long to figure that out.
We move on to the.
Yeah. Yeah, we already opened the. Oh, before you got here, so.
I'm Drew Swears with Beaster and Mason City. We put together the report. Obviously, as was discussed briefly, this is the public hearing for DE 103, the main tile improvement project. The project location is west of Lake Mills on the north and south side of Highway 69. How this project all started, it was brought forward to the board late summer of 2016. B&K was authorized to begin work September 21st of 2016. We then met with the landowners on October 27th, or a select number of the landowners, on October 27th of 2016 to review some of the problem areas, which were the low-lying ponding areas from the south side of Highway 69 north to the open ditch. We then performed some preliminary survey work once the ground was froze in December of 2016, and then we presented the report to the Board of Supervisors in March of 2017. The report summarized the existing tile capacity, and it was found to handle approximately a 5/16 inch drainage coefficient. Today's drain tile design follows the recommendations and standards of the Iowa Drainage Manual. Typically, drain tiles are designed for a minimum of 3/8 drainage coefficient, with a 1/2 inch to 1 inch being necessary where ponding occurs. The existing drain tile, as it is now, has less than half of the recommended capacity for today's design standards. The existing tile sizes range from 18 inch on the very downstream end towards the outlet, and it reduces farther upstream you get and goes down to 12 inch and 10 inch at the very upstream end. Due to the topography of the land served by the drain tile and the impounded areas, B&K recommended the existing drain tile be increased to handle a drainage coefficient of approximately 3/4 of an inch per day. The existing pipe would be abandoned and new larger tiles would be constructed at deeper and at greater slopes to achieve new design capacity and to achieve the design drainage coefficient of approximately 3/4 of an inch per day. The new larger pipes would be 24 inch at the downstream end and reduce in size the farther upstream you got to 15 inch and 12 inch. The estimated total project cost was $258,260, with the construction cost estimated at $228,500. I know I went through that fairly quickly, but can answer any
I
questions.
think we're all familiar.
You taking questions? There was some writing in there about destroying the old main. What's the point in doing that?
To make sure that part of the reason to destroy the old main is that way you don't have to worry about maintaining that old pipe for years and years and years. And then the new one would be designed to handle the higher coefficient. That way you can try to make sure you get all your laterals hooked up and everything associated with that. Another option was looked at to put in a smaller pipe and then utilize two pipes to get the same drainage coefficient, but it didn't make sense to leave essentially 80-year-old tile functioning with maintenance and repairs on it if you could just put in one new larger pipe that's deep and has enough slope to take care of the whole thing.
Could we leave that, say this went forward, could you leave that in there and make it the responsibility of the landowner, say if there's a pothole, whatever, so that they could still utilize that?
You're basically saying convert it to give it up as a county
Yes.
and make it a private tile.
Yep.
I believe you could do
Okay.
that.
I don't know of any maintenance that's been done on that original main.
And I don't, going back through the records, I don't remember seeing anything of much substance that's been done on it. And that was it. When you get to some old clay tiles of that age, it's getting to the end of what its design life was intended for. So there is a possibility of failures in the future with it. Was another reason to just abandon it, I guess.
Is it clay from the end of the ditch? Does it start with clay or does it start with concrete?
I don't know for sure. We didn't dig up the tile to see, and we couldn't tell from the intakes that we found out there to know one way or another, 100% for sure.
When did they switch from clay to concrete approximately?
I don't know the year on that.
What I've seen of that main has been
1962.
I think it's concrete on my property.
I do too. Yeah.
And that is possible. I can't.
So that will hold up quite a while, probably. I don't know.
You understand as trustees where we're coming from? We don't want to maintain both lines.
I understand that.
So how does that work if you have a new line, say you put a smaller line in to save costs, and you leave the existing line in? Or if you want to leave the existing line in and tie everything into the new line, as you propose, you have to cross that line to get to it. Hydrology-wise, or engineering-wise, how do you cross that line?
In this case, the new tile would be able to be constructed deeper, so you could dive the laterals down underneath to get into the new main. Because there's, I want to say, like about 4 or 5 feet of fall from where the main enters the ditch. So that could be lowered to then bring everything back deeper throughout the project. There may be an instance where it wouldn't work and you'd have to leave it tied into the old one, but the intent would have been to try and get them all tied over if we could.
At that point?
If it went private. If it stayed public with the two mains, you could just basically put half of them into the new and leave the rest into the old, because they're both still county
At that
mains.
point you were talking about, if it didn't work to go underneath, couldn't you have an outlet right there too, so you're getting directly over to?
Yeah.
Just a crossover.
So have you guys got involved in the grade or the fall from point A to the very top end at all? I mean, have you guys done those figures?
We started it. I did not get everything finalized 100%. Once the remonstrance came in, talking with Chris, she told me to stop, and I don't have everything finalized, but I have looked at it and started on that.
You have a good idea.
Yeah.
It comes down to this, guys. You want to pay for it or you don't. So it's up to you guys, and we're going to listen to you.
Well, I guess from talking to Kirby and you've talked to others, being as it's reclassified, it's kind of a no-go. But we're looking at, in the report we got from you guys, you said that running the new one across the highway would greatly improve the ponding. So is there a way we can make that work?
That's your question.
It could be done. Basically what that does, it'll reduce the project cost, but the downstream people will see the benefit of the larger pipe, but everything else upstream essentially has to pay for it. So it's kind of a...
Say that again?
Because since they're on the outlet to the main, kind of like the ditch, where everybody pays for it, where if you just improve the main for that short stretch, the project cost would be less, but all the property owners for the reclassification would have to pay for that cost since they get the outlet.
Yeah.
But they aren't seeing a benefit because they don't have larger pipe sizes up through their property. So it may be a
But if we got rid of all the water on 69 and on Denny's, the upper end's gonna go twice as fast too.
They would see a little improvement, yes. Not as much as it would be if the whole thing went, but they would see some.
Yeah, so if the cost was half of what's proposed, everybody pay half of what they have to pay right now.
Right.
And I'm not sure if that would even go. I'm for it, because number one rule of the land is stuff runs downhill. And our forefathers, bless them for thinking this through and doing this 80 years ago. Without that, these people above me would have no drainage. All that land that they're talking about, you would have no tile. So our forefathers were thinking. And I think today we're making a mistake when we don't go forward with this, because the next time it comes up, it's going to be more money. The price isn't going to be cheaper unless you cut the project way down. And as far as the reclassification, if we would have left it the way it was, it wouldn't go either, because those property owners down below would have been here saying, no, we're not getting anything. And I do question, we just cleaned the ditch down below. I paid a lot of taxes on that.
Yeah.
I did too.
I did too.
How much did you have to pay?
About $6,000.
Yeah.
I paid $800.
I had to pay about like that same amount. I'm trying to figure out, the whole project was only, I thought, 25 grand. How many people had to pay into this thing? I didn't realize you guys had.
Okay, stop, Dennis, right there. Yes, the guy that asked for that, and we have to do it. If one of you guys asks to do it on the repair, we have to do it. Our hands are tied. It cost me $800 too. And I got 8 acres.
Well, how much was that project to clean the ditch?
$32,000.
I'm trying to figure out.
I didn't know anything about it. I knew they were in there, did something a couple of years ago. This had to have been just within the last year.
We're getting a little off kilter here, but yeah. So we gotta, by law, we gotta watch what we talk about. You gotta realize our hands are tied by law. So you guys gotta come up, you five gotta come up with what you wanna do. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. So,
No, I can solve my problem for $11,000.
Yeah.
Just put in my own tile line, done. But then if you guys get together and do it all again, then I pay it over again. I mean, I'm tired of getting it bubbled up on me. But it is what it is.
And as it stands today, I do have a remonstrance. I have 6 landowners who own more than 70%. So at this point, the project will not go further.
One more thing. When our forefathers did this, the input costs were a little bit of nothing to put a crop in. Today, it's like, if you start figuring your land cost, which people that rent their land out don't care, because they get their money no matter what. But if you're a producer, you're out the $500-600 an acre you put in. Plus,
More like 300.
I'm a farmer, okay? Well, you're out to $600 worth of income. You're out to $600 worth of income, plus your input costs. So now, look at the difference. In the old days, you put in 50 bucks.
Dennis, this is a discussion you five need to have, not us. And I'm not trying to shut you up, I guess
I'm having a chance here to discuss this with these people.
Okay, you're right.
And I think some people have to hear this, because you just take your acres you're losing, times the amount, in just a few years, you gotta pay for it. I know it's a big dollars.
I agree with you on that one.
Hey, the odds of getting this done any cheaper, now that it's greased and done this way, are pretty slim. So I'm gonna have to just take action and do my own thing. I don't like blanks in the field.
We hear you.
So today unless we do the whole thing, we don't do nothing.
It stopped, according to Chris.
Yes, I mean, we can't.
We can change it if you guys want to change it, you can.
And then what? How do you?
And then we'll go forward with it.
Then we'll actually move forward with more engineering on grade.
Well, it's already been engineered, why do we have to do more?
No, they'll finish up the grades that they have, and that'll be it.
And then he would just do the cost per
Then we'd let it out for bids.
And then we'd set it out for bids.
I suggest you guys go over to, they're too early, I was gonna say, go to Brandy and Iron, but, yeah, go over to Brandy and Iron, order a CC7, and talk about it. And let us know.
All right. Won't be the branding iron quite yet.
That'll be open until 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We'll just wait to hear from someone. If we don't hear from anyone, we're just going to assume the project.
Hey, we just get a permit to Rice Lake Country Club for liquor license, so there you go. Go out there.
And then I will be getting the letters out. I don't remember when the public hearing will be for the reclassification, but then please come and voice your opinions.
Then you'll understand where they're coming from on how they reclassify it, how it's justified.
I hope you guys understand, our hands are tied. Us, the trustees.
For this one.
It's all up to you. Yeah.
It's a code requirement for
It's a code
reclassification on
requirement,
this one, there's no question.
And that's not, I've said enough today, but that's not trying to get me off the hook. That's just what it is.
Well, we're done then.
Yep, all right.
Do you want to close?
Yep, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Yep.
Second.
Motion Sturgeon, second Bowman, to close the public hearing. DD 103, all in favor, say aye.
Did you take care of payroll?
Yeah, we got it. We had you on camera. Couldn't remember you doing it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, number 13.
Thanks, guys.
Discussion with possible action regarding
Have a good Halloween.
state contribution.
Have a good Halloween.
I stay home, so.
We received notice that the Internal Revenue Service announced annual inflation adjustments for 2018, contribution limits for flexible health spending account increased from $2,600 to $2,650 for 2018. You guys need to decide whether you want to leave our flexible spending account at $2,550 is where we have them right now, or if you want to increase them to $2,650.
I'm sorry. Dave, can you shut the door, please?
It's
I didn't hear all
no
that.
cost to the county, right? It's just what the people can the employees can do with their flexible spending accounts.
Yes.
So I say we go with 2650, that gives them the flexibility to utilize it as they see fit. That's my opinion. I'll make that a motion.
Second.
Motion Derby, second Stedsrud to increase the flexible spending to 2650. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I just want to reiterate, I do apologize for letting my anger get control of me. I feel strongly about what I said, but I didn't do it the right way. So.
No, open forum.
Well, I would just like to have an apology for what words were said last week at Tuesday's meeting. I've had a lot of calls for what was written up in the Globe Gazette and what has hit Facebook. Considering about the audit and the procedures that are handled through the county, where we need to clean house in 2018 and in 2020. I think that's hitting a lot of the officials, and I believe we all do our part in trying to make the county work well. And I don't know how many times I myself have been down here talking about the finances, and nobody up, you three have never listened.
I agree.
And so I feel offended by the comments.
I would have to agree with that.
And I do believe we should have a public apology to the three officials.
I don't think you're gonna like what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
But, you know, when you come in, Chris, and ask for another employee, how do we know?
It's not another employer. I had one. She just went to full-time.
You have to understand that people are getting to the boiling point of what they're spending in taxes.
Do you think
So
that
is
could be
that our-
secondary road? I've heard a lot of comments about the secondary road and their expenditures.
That's exactly. I'm
And-
saying everybody, us included.
And I believe us three in our departments have held our budgets way less. And I give back to the county every year.
I give 10% back every year. I've never had a budget amendment.
And
I'm
never
really
did.
offended.
Yeah. And I have been down here with.
Just so you know, that comment was not meant for your office or for your office.
Yes, it was.
So,
It was
no,
stated that way.
No, it wasn't.
For 2018. So I have had.
I said 2018.
Yes, that's me and that's Julie.
And me too.
And me.
And me too.
So I just think it needs to be addressed to the
But
public.
why wouldn't you want to be under the microscope?
I am every day.
We already
I
are.
hear it.
I think those comments just make us look like we're not doing our job. And
You might think that, but you know what the perception is of the county? That the three of us run the county. You guys don't run the county. Carl doesn't run the county. We run the county. That's the perception of everybody in the county.
exactly.
And they do not understand that we have no control over your offices.
You have control over our budget.
We have control of your budget to a certain extent. By state law, and you know this full well, we have to give you so much money to operate your office efficiently. So the three of us are screwed. And county government is so backward today. And I'm sorry that this was brought up today because I'm already in an angry mood. Okay, I'm sorry. So I need to temper what I say here. I'm very disturbed. Very, very disturbed where we're sitting at right now in Winnebago County. And I'm part of it. I have to admit, I'm part of it.
Yes, you are. You're
Yep.
one of.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. I admit it, you know. I think everybody needs to go home and look in the mirror.
Well, and
That's it for open forum for me.
I don't think the taxpayers appreciate Bill's comments either.
What?
About having to just pay the taxes. Your comment in the paper about increasing the taxes and smile and pay your taxes if you want these services.
I don't remember saying that.
Yeah, that's in the paper as well.
I didn't.
And I have had comments about that because they
Smile and pay the taxes?
they feel that they pay enough taxes as it is in Winnebago County. And we hear that front line.
Oh, I can't believe that I would say something like that.
It's in the paper.
Radio, but it's in the paper.
Well, you know, if I did say something like that, it was taken completely out of context. But I do not remember saying anything like that. And the whole article suggests that there's wrongdoing in Winnebago County.
Yes.
And there's two of us that are still here that we're not in favor of the audit when I first heard it come out of his mouth. I'm like, well, we already get audited.
That's correct. And if there was an issue all these years, I think you would have been informed on that. But I believe the audits have come back in our favor.
I talked to the auditor last week. I made a special trip in here. But all she did is reaffirm what I was already thinking.
So I just think us three.
There's no wrongdoing here. We've got two things that have hit us. And that's the public safety center and the upkeep on this building, and it just drained every extra penny there was.
And that needs to be put in the paper then, and an apology.
And an article suggesting that there was wrongdoing was completely out of context. I don't even think Mike meant it that way. I think he just meant that he was possibly didn't understand the process. I don't think he was really intending to say that there was I wish he was still here, but.
It doesn't matter because it's already in the Globe, it's on Facebook, it's out there. The people are talking about it, and I'm getting the phone calls.
And I'm gonna go back and look at the recording of the meeting to see if I ever said anything like that.
But I just think we need to go forward, and something needs to be put in the paper addressing the errors that was misspoke at this office meeting last week.
Because if I said something like smile and pay your taxes, it's only because that's the way the world works and I don't like it.
Neither do the people paying the high taxes in this county
Which would
already.
include me. I would never say something that would be in the face of the taxpayers like that.
And I feel when I come forward and tell you that our finances are going bad, you need to listen to me and not just approve another sale, another benefit for the county. It doesn't do any three officials any good to speak our word if your guys aren't going to listen to us.
Where do you want us to start?
Well, we should have started a long time ago.
Possibly, but what would you have wanted us to start with first?
What do you mean?
I mean, that's what I ask people that are upset about the taxes. I says, well, we'll have to make cuts. I says, what services do you want us to cut first?
Well, you guys need to look at the claims that are coming in, and maybe different departments need to follow the rules of cutting their budget. Don't overspend and don't keep spending when the money's not there. And unfortunately, I know we need our roads and we need work there, but sometimes some of those expenditures we don't need.
We can cut on secondary roads, and what I've told some people is we can cut on secondary roads. It says it's just when a blizzard comes, you may be 2 days before the plow goes by your place. It used to be that way.
That's not where you need to cut. There's other places that you need to cut as well in their spending. It's, just everywhere. There's grants that could be written for the law enforcement center. There's grants that could be written for this courthouse. You know, those needed to be started before the projects got started. That would have helped on some of the cost. It's a lot of work to write a grant, but those are things that we need to look at.
When we first started the courthouse project, there was discussion on whether we should go for a historical grant.
Yes.
But then it was also indicated that the design and architectural fees are a lot higher. The guidelines are a lot more stringent in that part of it. So we thought we could save some money by not getting that route.
But there's other grants.
We need to start tapping into some of those funds.
Yes. And unfortunately, we're in the situation we are now today because we've not done those things.
Who's in charge of grant writing?
That's your decision. That should be you three. You're the supervisors.
Yeah, our position that we expanded in Winworth Betco has been designated the grant writer. And they wrote one up for the Lay Foundation that I sent to Carla to print out so you can look at it.
But like you three should be involved in that grant writing with Teresa. Dave Peterson should be in that grant writing with Teresa for the LEC.
And I have been involved in any of them we have written.
You know, because there's money there that maybe we can utilize.
I guess my ignorance is I don't realize what all that is there.
But that's your job to figure that out and find out before we get into a mess like this.
And I think if I can put it on the agenda for next week to discuss possible grants. We can't talk about that among us, so.
Right.
Without it being on the agenda.
But I do think something needs to be addressed in the paper, publicly speaking, the corrections from last week. Because it was taken by public a lot of different ways. And for three of us that don't have anything to do with the situation that we're in today, it fell on our shoulders.
Can you write an article that,
I wrote what happened during the meeting, and that was said, and I can't control how people portray things. I just laid it out exactly how it happened. Supervisor Stensrud was upset about the financial situation at the county, so I wrote.
And still upset.
Because he's not here, so.
I guess the thing that frustrates me is that he was asking Elizabeth all these questions, and he's never once came into my office and asked me any questions. Whereas you've asked me questions, I've sent you information. You've asked me questions, I've sent you information. You've come in and talked to me about the financial situation. Mike's never done that.
and if there was a vote last week on whether we had an audit or not, I would have voted no, because I do not think there is a problem. Well, there is a problem, but it's not anything an audit is gonna, all an audit's gonna tell us is that we've spent too much money, and we already know that.
Yeah, so the budget amendments that have been done and the overspending.
And there would not have been an audit, or there will not be an audit as far as I'm concerned, and I believe Terry is on the same page. And I think Mike begrudgingly is probably, after he's talked to the lady at the state, and then, what's her name? Elizabeth. And I wish she would have come in last week and talked to her like I did. And, I made a special trip down here to talk to her because she was here. My brother-in-law had all the grain carts and everything full when I got back. So it's not like I didn't have something to do too, but I would have never voted yes for that audit because I do not believe the people involved are, especially doing, criminal wrongdoing being involved. I mean, there's just absolutely no.
The thing that upset me last week, that discussion got a little out of hand. Because that discussion should have never taken place in that context because it wasn't on our agenda. Today it was on our agenda.
Well, I hope what we've said in open forum gets published as well. Because I do feel that it was wrong.
There was an article out there that created the wrong perception about Winnebago County.
And this, what we've said here today, needs to be printed, and I need an apology from, I don't know how you guys want to do it, but I just think it was wrong.
I
It's wrong for the
apologize, but I never
taxpayers.
brought it up.
It's wrong for the taxpayers. I mean,
Spend $30,000, $40,000 on an audit of money we don't have to find out that, I mean, there's two of us here that had nothing to do with saying that.
And I guess, you know, if Mike really thinks that there is something wrong, I would welcome an audit because
Exactly.
none of us have done anything wrong.
that's exactly right, Carla.
There's been overspending,
I would agree.
and that's what's,
But I want to know where he's going to come up with the money to do that.
you're exactly right.
Well, the overspending is the budget amendments and the courthouse and the public safety center. It all got out of hand. Because I do believe we watch our books. We've been down here, we've voiced our concerns. And the next time you read it in the paper, this is passed, that's passed, this amendment's been done.
I read through it every time I get it, even the little ones. I go through it and look at them all. I may not know what all of them are, but especially the large ones, which in this case, they would all have to be large wrongdoings. I mean, there's nothing that has stuck out in my mind that is,
Well, I think Elizabeth had some good ideas, so from here forward, we'll just have to
And
work
that's just
together.
it, we need to, sit down and talk about what we need to do moving forward.
Right.
The past is the past, and we need to just be adults and
That's the only statement I had made was.
move forward.
Yeah, a lot of work.
And we gotta fix it.
Right.
and an audit ain't gonna fix it.
No.
So,
A lot of hard work is gonna fix it.
unfortunately, 2 out of 3 supervisors would not have approved an audit, and so therefore, it really maybe should have not made the paper when one makes an accusation.
But we legally couldn't discuss it.
Because it wasn't on the agenda.
And I certainly apologize for my involvement in it, even though I wish it had never been said in the first place. Any further discussion on it?
No, I have nothing more to say, just that we're very frustrated. Surprised by the comments.
I was really surprised to hear that made the front page.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It sure didn't
So
seem
it
like
just-
it was that big a deal to me when it was said last week.
Well, it's a big deal to the taxpayers.
It's a big deal now.
Yes, it is. So it needs to get corrected.
And the public health issue is a big deal.
Yes, it
We
is.
need to address it as such.
There's a lot of people in the county, we're an elderly community in the county.
I'm not saying the public health isn't a big deal. I'm saying having an audit, to me, I didn't think that was something that wasn't voted on to have. It was just suggested. So, yeah, public health is, like I've said before, I lived with them for 3 years, maybe 4 years with their health. Anything else? We stand adjourned.
Michael.
You're right for the vote, so I hope we get that in favor as well.
She wanted 2 of the 3 back. Mike got copies, so.
I didn't use that.
I'm just was listening, I'm just to sit here. I can give it.
What I would like is. That's 20 copies. So that was the third one that we completed.
So it's not just
Whether it's
under
in our
my ordinance because the landowners didn't want to find it. Okay? That's what I would like to see.
Signature.
We want to do a project.
And then we have our
I bug her frequently.
Yeah, that's good. I'm not elected, just telling you.
Thank you.
I'm not an elected official. Yeah. Because we hear enough comments down there paying taxes. We'll take care of it. I know you always do.
I got the lake.
Thank you. Thank you.
In her email, she indicated that she needed a couple of things. The information that she provided there was somewhat right, but some of the numbers weren't quite right. I didn't have my
Right. So yes, so if you do
version of the
something,
software that
it will be in
change to
writing.
PDF.
Okay?
I don't know.
I will email her, or I will look at it.
She's got a meeting this morning, but she did.
Okay.
Do you want to wait until then? Do you have time?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I have to get back to volleyball.
Okay, well, I can call you if I have questions.
Yeah, I can definitely provide help to Ryan.
Okay, good.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So how did you get this?
Elizabeth Fryer.
Oh, you came in, right? Okay. Yeah. Right.
Oh,
Title.
she's Gardner Thompson, she's our attorney. She's the lead.
The one that's the annual audit.
What it is basically it's taking the moisture.
Do you see this too?
Well, sorry about playing the leapfrog with you the other night.
That's no problem.
I had it floored.
Racing down the highway like that?
Yeah.
Well, it's like you would slow down as soon as you come to the hills. I'm like, okay, I'm getting out of his way, because normally I'll just follow you and take the draft, and it's
See,
like,
with the cut the wind that strong,
Mhm.
they're so underpowered.
Mhm.
I get going, I get going just about 70 on the way down, and as soon as I start getting the head down to 65, 68, and here comes AJ again.
yeah, I'm bugging around, so I'm like, okay, dude. I'm in cruise. Oh, no, that escape, oh my gosh, that was taking wind like it, well, it was worse going down than it was coming back up again, 'cause